Welcome to the 1000 Comics Podcast. It's your host, Matt Heath. How are you, folks? What's new? What's going on? How you doing? Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. Man, Labor Day weekend. I just had my guest Dave Sheehan over here. We had a great time, great interview with Dave Sheehan. Had a lot of fun. Before we get into that, I just want to talk about I just saw the trailer for the new Joker movie. Holy Lord, that looks like a good movie. Oh man, Joaquin Phoenix. You know, Mark Maron's gonna be in it. One of my favorite podcasters. And Robert De Niro. Holy Lord, he's like It almost looks like it's a sequel to the movie he did back in the day, The King of Comedy, because you know Jerry Lewis was kind of like the Johnny Carson role, and he was kind of like the evil comedian that was trying to get. He was almost like the Joker in that movie. Now De Niro is kind of taking the Jerry Lewis role, and he's like Johnny Carson. And Joaquin Phoenix is the crazy guy. Oh man, it just looks like it takes place in the '70s. I just can't wait to see that. That looks good, man. That looks really good. I don't. It's like I think it's gonna be hard to top Heath Ledger as the Joker, but I said the same thing about him when Jack Nicholson did that role. So I still haven't seen the other one. I still haven't seen that Suicide Squad movie, but this Joker movie looks damn good. I just had Dave Sheehan over. Oh man, we had a good time. We had a good time recording, and you know, just like many comedians, he says like the funniest things. Like as soon as the mics go off, because as soon as the mics went off, he commented on a picture that I have behind me of me when I was a teenager, standing next to Jeff Gaffigan, Jim Gaffigan, and he said, "It looks. Why do you have a picture of Jim Gaffigan with Keanu Reeves' sister?" And I do look like a female version of Keanu Reeves. I was going through an awkward stage in high school. First comedy show I ever went to. There was a picture of me with Jim Gaffigan there. It's a good one. That was a good one, Dave. And then after we were done recording, it's a funny thing about Dave Sheehan, because we had a few drinks while we were hanging out here. He leaves the last sip of every drink in the can or glass he's drinking out of it. I'm like, why do you leave the mung in your glass? He never heard that expression. Like, something my dad always used to say when he would like empty out the beer cans before we'd go return the cans or whatever into the machines, and he'd be like, make sure you get the mung out of there. The last sip of beer that's left in there is referred to as mung. Dave Sheehan had never heard that before, but he leaves more mung than anybody else. You say, what is that mung? It's mung is either two things. It's the last sip of beer that you leave in the beer can, or it's what comes out when you push down on a pregnant woman's stomach. That's mung. That's if you didn't. That's a new. That's your your 1000 comics vocabulary word of the week. Mung. I haven't done that in a while. Your vocabulary word of the week. I'm giving you that one. Oh man, we had Dave Sheehan actually. So it's Labor Day weekend. It's the Sunday before Labor Day, and in the area I live in, Windsor, all the restaurants freaking closed down on Labor Day weekend. You think that Sunday before Labor Day would be a good big drinking day, but it's not. They closed down all the friggin' restaurants, and we actually went to the sports bar. That's like that's also has like an upstairs comedy club. Well, I guess they do comedy shows there called Bobby V's, and I guess Brad Axelrod runs the room. And I haven't done a show with him in a long time. We got to talking about Brad Axelrod, and I'd love to do one of the Treehouse comedy shows. I haven't not since I did the competition when I was like 21, like a long time ago. Um, yeah, And that brought back some memories of doing that competition back at the Coyote Mavericks. I think the place was. I did the Treehouse comedy competition, but it looks like a lot of the Treehouse comedy shows go on there. We were like joking around because we both took a leak before we left that place, and the game was the football game in the bathroom was louder than it was in the restaurant, and I was joking. I was like, "Oh, if there's a flag thrown on the field, you got to go into the bathroom and listen to it." And then I was wondering if during a comedy show you could either hear the game or you hear the comedy show. And Dave was telling me about how the TV's in there distracting even to Joe. He said Joey Matarese walked off stage because even though the TVs for the it's just there's like there's like 100 TVs, the giant TVs in there in the bar area, but the comedy shows are in a completely different room. But I guess you could see him at top, and Joey Matarese, I guess, walked off on a show in that room. That took me by surprise. That was kind of interesting. So I got a show coming up with Dave Sheehan, the guy I'm about to interview. Me and him both won a competition with Brian Barganier and Kate Clancy. The audience voted me and Dave's the winner to be feature comics the night of September 15th. September 15th, Sunday night, June's Outback in Killingsworth, Connecticut. So if you want to come out to June's Outback, come see me and Dave September 15th. September 19th, which is a Thursday, you can see me at Comics Roadhouse. So if you want to come out to see me then, Thursday night at 10, I'll be at Comics Roadhouse. Also, if you want to check out one of my books, if you haven't bought any of my plays yet, Renaissance Men, Scared Out of the Dickens, and Pawnbrokers, they're all on Amazon.com. Just type in Matt Heath in the search bar. And please enjoy my interview with Dave Sheehan. All right, welcome to the 1000 Comics podcast. I'm here with my guest, Dave Sheehan.
Hi.
What's up? How you doing, man?
Doing okay. How's everything here?
Dave brought some Guinnesses over, and we're just gonna do it, man. We're just gonna record. I didn't even prepare anything, man. I've known you for so long. Like, what am I gonna prepare for? I already know our conversations end up taking like weird turns, and you're always just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
That'll probably happen several times in the first 3 minutes of this recording.
But I actually liked what you said as you were walking in with, you were like, is it uncouth to drink a few Guinnesses if you're bringing over like a 12-pack of Guinness or whatever?
I don't think I said uncouth, but I guess that works.
You know what? I just threw that I thought that'd be like your vocabulary, so...
I see. Yeah, I probably would. But no, what I had said was that you go to somebody's house, you bring something, like you bring a case of beer, and I was just saying, is it okay if you have a few of the beers from the package before you bring them over? Because I don't usually do that. But
most of my podcast guests don't bring anything. I'm not saying they all don't. A lot of them do bring alcohol-type beverages, or I usually like to try to make people feel as comfortable as possible. So I either say, do you want me to have coffee or beer for you? And usually they'll choose one of the two. Now, but I was always raised to, like, my parents would say, if you ever go over somebody's house, you always bring something.
Yeah, it's kind of ingrained into me. Most of the time I will if I can.
Yeah.
If it's last minute, that's different, but I knew for a while I'd be coming here.
Do you think that's something your parents instilled into you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think just that, and just kind of learning about certain traits of social graces when you go visit somebody. It's their home. They're having you in their space, so it's nice to thank them in a way. Bring alcohol, unless they're like clean, then it would be weird.
Right. Where'd you grow up, anyways, Dave?
I've always lived in the same area. I was born in New Haven. Family was living in West Haven when I was born.
Right.
Lived there till I was about 5. Family moved to Orange.
Okay.
One town over, and then I moved back to West Haven as an adult. So clearly I get around.
I spent a great deal of time in West Haven because I went to the University of New Haven.
Okay.
Where'd you go to college?
Fairfield U.
Fairfield U.
Yes.
All right. Did it ever strike you to go to any of those New Haven?
I applied to a few of those. I think I applied to UNH. It's just going back so long because I'm old. I think I applied to UNH. I know I did a tour there. I applied to Yale, which was a long shot, and I didn't get accepted. I applied to Southern. I think I was accepted. I think I got accepted to a few. This is back in the 90s when there wasn't like oversaturated. Like I think there's way more.
This is when they were actually selective about people getting into college, and they just didn't let in everybody.
Yeah, now it's at the point there's more kids needing or wanting to go to college than colleges seem to have spots for kids to go. And there's also a rising shift away from college as a necessity. Like, you can go if you want. There's a lot you can get out of it more than the education or a degree. It's the social aspect. It's, for many people, it's the greatest time of their lives. For me, I didn't live on campus. It wasn't who I was. It was just I commuted. I was fine with that. It was just like going to high school for a few more years, just going to classes, coming home, and do that.
What did you major in when you were at school?
What would you think?
Something with computers.
Computer science. I knew you'd guess it. It's not a stretch.
Now, you've told me before, but I don't know. What do you do for a living? You input data?
No, it is IT though. So again, not a stretch. It's software support.
Right.
It's in recent years it has transitioned into cloud because everything's cloud now.
Yeah.
Functionally, it's kind of the same as what I used to do, which is really just when people are having problems with specific software, they describe their symptoms, describe what changed, what happened, what errors they're getting, and I work with them to try to get them past it.
Do you think you got into stand-up comedy because
no,
your real life job is tedious? Do you think?
No. Because I used to, before I ever knew I would be doing stand-up, I used to like watching it, which is common for people who do it. And again, before I knew I'd be doing it, I actually would start writing ideas down, thinking like, this is something funny I think a stand-up comedian might have good material about. And I had lists and lists and lists. And after, I think at one point I was like, why am I even writing this down if I'm not going to do it?
Right.
And that was before I started my career. I think I was still in college at the time, so of course I was working in computer-related classes, and I always enjoyed playing with computers growing up and making fake programs and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of always been my mindset. I think comedy is kind of unrelated to that. It was just another thing that I was interested in.
And you started stand-up shortly after college, or?
I was 25 when I did my first set. I wanted to start earlier, but I didn't want to do anything until I took a class. And Connecticut doesn't have that many classes, or some have come and gone. At the time, there was a performing arts school, which is, I don't believe they're around anymore.
Right.
It was mostly geared toward theater, like acting classes, monologues, that kind of thing. But they did have occasionally improv classes, and they had a stand-up class in their catalog, but I think the person who used to teach it had left the area, so they didn't have any offerings of it for a while. So I did a few improv classes first to get my feet wet, and ended up liking that. And they finally had an offering for the stand-up class, which I took, and the final, the graduation was that you got to perform in front of a live audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was 25 when I did that.
Nice.
So I kind of had the initial thoughts when I was in college, but it was several years before.
Looking back, do you think that stand-up classes are kind of BS?
No.
You're one of the people that actually think they're beneficial. Huh?
If people, there's a lot that's going to go into the class. It's the teacher, of course, the experience, the other students. I still to this day remember a lot of the stuff they said about how to write, how to occupy the space on stage, what do's and don'ts. It's just kind of become instinct to me, but I still remember a lot of the stuff they talked about. So for me, it was absolutely not a waste.
All right. I remember, I think the main reason I never took a class was actually something Pat Oates said to me, and it was like a year, maybe like a year into doing open mics, and because he was teaching comedy classes at Joker's, and I said so, I'm like maybe I should do that. He's like, nah, you're way beyond that at this point. Like, there's no reason.
Once you've done it initially, I mean, if you do it for maybe a year and you still don't feel like you're adapting naturally and getting anywhere and you feel stuck, I think you could maybe take a class. Again, not all classes are going to be good. It might be at a club where they're just looking to make money and they just have somebody who doesn't know that much teaching. Then the students aren't going to get much out of it and might put classes down in general. I think Pat he just kind of had a natural ability when he started. He was already over the whole. I remember him telling me this, that he was already past the whole point that a lot of comedians need to get past, just being comfortable on stage.
Yeah.
So for some people, it can take years before you like relax. Pat had that from the beginning. So he just with that, even before writing or performing style, he was light years ahead of people when he started.
How long do you think it took you to get comfortable on stage?
I remember the first night, like the other people from the class beforehand, a lot of us were nervous. One of the other women in the class did. I can't remember what it's called. It might be like Reiki. It's that kind of energy heal, not massage, but you kind of like you put your hands near a person, and you can kind of get the energy or kind of tell if they're angry or nervous, and she can kind of like do this stuff to calm you. She did. I remember she was doing this to one guy in the class who said she felt terrified. I was nervous too, but she said I can tell you're not as nervous. And I remember like as soon as I walked up on stage and took the microphone, I almost just felt the nerves just like vanish. It was weird. It was almost like somebody flushed the toilet, and the nerves were just gone. I was still a little on edge, but I got up and I just delivered everything pretty much as I planned to. I might have bumbled a few times, but I don't think I forgot anything, and I got a decent reaction, and it was a great first time. And the downside of having a really good first time is it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security and makes you think, oh, I'm never going to have a bad set. So that when that bad set does come, you're a little taken aback.
Right.
And that was a few sets.
But also when you're doing it in front of a class, right?
Yes.
And it's like all those people I feel like are going to be supportive.
Yes.
Like where it's like you go to an open mic, it's like other comedians are not even always that supportive. Right. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah, the first open mic I did was probably the second show. There was a guy who was just not doing well and got to the point where he refused to get off stage until he started getting laughs. So that creates a really comfortable vibe for the room, and I hadn't gone up yet. But yeah, like open mic is, you really just don't ever know what's going to happen at those things.
Now let me ask you: and anybody else from those classes, that class that you took, still do stand up?
No.
That's why I think that stand-up comedy classes are kind of bullshit, though, because I feel like people pay the money to think they're actually going to be able to start, a career, and they're paying money to do that, and then it's like they realize that it's like it's a lot harder than that. You know what I mean?
That's part of it, but also as I found out in that class, there are different reasons to take a stand-up class, just like there's different reasons to take an improv class. Not everyone who takes an improv class is doing it because they want to be in a troupe and like tour and do improv shows. For some people, it's a getting out of their comfort zone element. Some people do it who do like public speaking at their job and want to kind of come up with better ways to write, just in general, maybe inject humor into it. So there's a lot of things to get out of it. I don't know that anyone there was looking to do it longer term. I am still friends with someone who was in the class, but just kind of through another group that we kind of met around the same time and stayed friends. And she had also been in one of my improv classes, a couple of my improv classes that I had done. So I kind of already knew her, and she had a history of like theater. Her family had acted a lot. She still acts sometimes. So this was just another type of performing art. She just kind of wanted to give it a try, not looking to do stand-up. So,
and that person grew up to be Lisa Kudrow.
Yes. I probably would have led with that if that was true. But sure, yes, she's on Friends. Because that's how old I am.
No longer a stand-up, but still in the world of comedy.
Very much so.
Oh man, Dave. So you've been doing it since you were 25. Don't tell me how old you are, but how many years is that? How many years have you been doing it?
Well, that's another way of asking how old I am, Matt, isn't it? Which I'll say if you'd like to know.
All right, sure. Why not?
I am an old 42.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I am the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
that's a lot of years. I've been doing it since I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I've probably known you since I started doing it. Where did we meet, anyways?
Sometime within maybe the strange pub,
Strange Brew?
box in Norwich.
What did you think of that mic / the shows there overall?
Strange Brew?
Yeah.
Most of the ones I was at, the turnout wasn't that great, and I heard that sometimes that would happen, but other times there were decent turnouts. Just follow the cards, I didn't ever see that many people. One time I went, there was literally no audience, so the comics just kind of used the opportunity to workshop and do some writing exercises, which was fun. And one time I went, you were there, the entire audience was like a table of 4 that you brought, but they were having fun, so was I.
Whatever happened to AJ, the guy that I think we already had this discussion last time I saw you. Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know. He was a really good guy. I liked him. I know he was working with some other booker in Eastern Connecticut. Last I knew, this was a couple of years ago. He was going to have me on this show that it ultimately got canceled, but he had asked me on it like a couple of months in advance, and as the date was getting closer, like it's occurring to me, I haven't seen posters, I haven't heard any of the other
and
people.
And he just disappeared off the face of
and
the earth.
I was messaging him like, do you have any more information? He wasn't answering. I couldn't even get a hold of other people on the show or the guy he was working with. Someone told me eventually, like a few days ahead of time, they think it was canceled. And then I finally heard from AJ, who just said, it got canceled. I don't know what the story was. But that was the last I heard of him. And I think that was 3 years ago.
That is so strange, isn't it?
It's strange like brew.
Strange. But it's like also online, his like online handle. I never learned the guy's last name because on Facebook he was AJ Strangebrew.
His real last name, I don't remember it, but when I first became acquainted with him, it was part of his name. He changed it to Strange Brew later, so when you met him, it's probably that.
So I
want to say Leno or something like that.
So AJ, if you're out there, you're listening to this podcast, we want you to return to the world of comedy, or at least let us know how you're doing, because like
we miss AJ.
We miss you, man. Oh man, I like that room just because the album covers on the wall. It's very much my style.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
All the different beer varieties. It's some unusual ones there. And you just get your drink tickets.
I found a soundtrack to the movie Strange Brew at one point because I was at the time I was working at a record store.
Okay.
The movie with Rick Moranis and the other guy, and they're like Canadians and they
Martin Short.
Not Martin Short. I forget the name. It was the other guy from SCTV. Because it was a skit they did. These two guys.
Thomas.
Bob
and Doug McKenzie?
Yes, Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis. I didn't know they did a movie. I remember they had like a recurring and a minor hit song in the 1980s.
Right, but it was a movie called Strange Brew, and I got it was the Bob and Doug McKenzie album, and I took off one of the albums on the wall, and I put that one up there. And I remember
what did you take off? Do you remember?
I forget what I took off.
Still have it?
But they're what I took off?
Yes.
Nah, I think I just left it there. But they were pretty. The people that worked there were pretty psyched that I found a Strange Brew album, and it was the same night I think that all the comedians were. I don't know if you were there that night. All the comedians chose an album on the wall to autograph and leave a note out.
Not part of that.
No, the one I did. I don't know if it's. Because I haven't been there in a while. They might have changed the whole place and what it looks like.
Name. Yeah, I was never there very much.
But I autographed the Return of Bruce Willis album. And I forget what I wrote on it, but if you go into Strange Brew, you'll find my autograph on that thing.
Bruce Willis's hit singing career that I'd forgotten about until you just brought it up. Yes.
Yep. Yep. But were you a frequent goer of Joker's Wild or
not frequent? I was there from time to time.
You live in Orange, in West Haven now.
I live in West Haven now, yes.
But that wasn't like one of your regular spots. You didn't.
Well, the main thing was the mic to go to, and I went to that occasionally. But a lot of times it was 40 people. And if I didn't get there 4 hours ahead of time,
you got kind of sick of that.
So that was tough. I hosted there like a few times a year. I finally got to feature a couple months before they closed.
Really,
I still miss the place. It's been almost 4 years.
I miss the place too. Yeah.
Well, I don't have like hustle. No, I'm not even kidding. Like I don't know how to market myself as long as I've been doing this. I really don't. I see people have surpassed me because they not only write well, but they also have the business sense about things, and I don't know how to market. It's not something I ever really got down.
So, that's the important part is just being funny, I think.
Yeah, a lot of stuff will come from that, but I also feel like I am not where I could be because I don't have other.
But I feel like most people on the scene think of you as like a veteran of comedy because they know you've been doing it a long time. I think that you've been doing it longer than most people around here. Yeah,
new people who are starting, like I'm biologically old enough to be your dad. I don't say that to all of them. Some of them, maybe. I had a couple comics ask if I could be their comedy dad. Like, I guess. So I don't have to buy you cigars or something. I don't know what that even entails. I'm not going to stand outside the liquor store.
Who asked you to do that?
Just didn't offer you. And Scott, something or other, who I haven't seen in a while.
Scott McDonald?
No. I think he's younger. He was around for a while. He was doing mics, and I was on a couple of shows with him, and then I haven't seen him in a while, so I don't know if he's still doing it. Scott Bastian,
sounds like you're being a good comedy dad to him.
I guess.
I don't remember his last. He was supposed to change his last name to Sheehan, or at least the stage name.
That comes later. I don't know. Do you slip him a sip of beer while the wife's not looking? What does a comedy dad do? Tells them their first offensive joke.
I can't wait till I'm old enough to become a comedy dad.
Stay in it. You'll get there.
I'm definitely at least a comedy uncle.
Yeah, that's a whole other type of role.
I'm wondering though, when you started, which was the 90s, late 80s, 90s.
I started in 1907. 2002.
2002.
Before social media.
All right, so a little over a decade before I started.
Okay.
What was the scene like back then in Connecticut here?
Well, we take for granted now how easy it is to find out about mics and gigs. Back then, it was entirely word of mouth. You might see an advertisement for a local comedy venue, like in the newspaper or online somewhere on a website. But the best you could do was go watch a show, ask who books. Maybe they have a mic, or maybe there's a room that'll let you do 5 minutes and take a look at you, which still happens now, but it's a lot easier to connect with people and know what's going on. Back then, it was entirely about who you knew, networking.
Who was running the rooms back then?
John Benson goes back that far. He had started a few years before I did. This woman, Anne, was around for a while. I believe she moved to Florida about 10 years ago. She had a few rooms and a few mics. Couple other names I remember who I think they either kind of stopped doing it or doing it as often or moved out of the area. Most of the names from back then have either kind of moved away or I don't know what happened with it. They went the way of AJ. Is that a new expression?
They just disappeared. Disappeared off the face of the earth.
But yeah, a lot of turnover. A couple of stalwarts, people who I met back then who are still involved. So headliners I knew back then are still active as headliners today. I've seen some people start and move their way up, which is kind of cool. They stay at it. But yeah, a lot of people from that era. Just I don't know what happened to them. I enjoyed that I got to work with them. I did, but. It's like anything in life, just you meet so many people, it just gets hard to keep track after a while.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you'll think about it.
Do you like the scene better now, or do you like the scene? Or do you think there was Do you think there was a specific time you were like, oh, that was the best time to be doing it?
There's pros and cons to both eras. I'd say it's a little better now, just because I have been able to get some opportunities through social media. I don't think I would have known about otherwise.
Okay.
And having been doing it for a while and kind of rising to whatever level I'm at, I don't even know how to qualify it myself, kind of puts me ahead of the game because I have videos now of myself doing a strong 20 that I can send to somebody who doesn't know me, and that's a really good intro as opposed to just a blind, hey, I do comedy, can you do anything about it? But I know there's some bookers who still see it.
All right. Would you consider yourself a? I would consider you a feature comic that you really only see at open mics because you don't push yourself hard enough.
Part of it is that there's other things I'm involved in life. As much as I do like comedy, I don't think I have it in me to try to do a mic every night. I think I would burn out. So
right.
I feel like I can do.
But I don't think you're at the point where you need to do a mic every night.
No,
it's just about the exposure and about bookers.
I do like doing them because there's always a chance to try new stuff. Again, network, just get out. If I haven't had like a show in a week or something, and I want to keep the chops fresh. But I know there's no shortage of mics right now. There's a bunch that open mics come and go. That's been the case for a while. So it's nice to just have the opportunity.
The last time that I saw you, I actually liked that Mike June's there. What'd you think?
Yeah.
And Kate must have told you won the.
No.
Oh, she didn't tell you. She told me that me and you both won the little competition that night, and we're both featuring at June's the
15th.
The third Sunday of September.
Okay, this is the first I'm hearing of that.
Yeah, all right. So I'm glad you get to learn this on my podcast. That's great. So we're both featuring that.
All right.
So all you out there in podcast land listening, if you'd like to see me and Dave both feature at June's Outback in what's the name of the town?
Killingworth.
Killingworth, Connecticut. Killingworth, Connecticut. June's. What time is it?
Right now?
No. What time is that?
We started at 8.
It'll be at 8.
The one we were at started at 8.
All right. June's Outback, Killingsworth, Connecticut.
No S.
Third Sunday of September at 8 p.m. That's when
Killingworth, not Killingly. I don't know why we have so many killing cities in Connecticut, but we have more than one, and this is Worth, not Lee.
And he's giving you a sneak preview of his material. That's probably what you're going to open.
Don't tell him that. I'm not going to go. Go for Matt. Don't go for me.
No, go for Dave. Come on. He just said he's not getting booked enough. We're finally both featuring someone.
I don't think that's what I said. That's not what I meant. No, I will have. I don't mind every so often. Might have like a week or two where I don't have anything, and I like that because it gives me a chance to mentally rest or start thinking about looking forward to the next thing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I don't think I'd ever want to be doing I know for a lot of people moving to New York is the thing to do because you can get up 4 or 5 times a night every night, and if that's how into it you are, great. But I don't think I am, and maybe that's holding me back. But I also need to do it to the level that works for me. Otherwise, it's not going to work for anyone.
Right.
So if it's a light month and I only have 4 or 5 shows, I'm fine with that because other months are busier. And then to have a night every so often where I just stay home and just watch TV and just relax.
Comedy,
that's important
just doing comedy can be draining.
Oh, very much so.
And the open mic scene in New York, compared to Connecticut, can be ultra depressing. And I'm sure you've done a few mics down there, right?
It's a world of difference.
Yeah.
I did one recently because I was down there for another event, so I'll do the mic first. And I didn't really have too much new stuff in the till to practice, so I said, I'll just do some of the regular stuff I do when I do weekend shows in Connecticut, where I usually get big laughs, and I was getting deafening silence. Now, again, these were open micers, so it's an entirely different audience, not to mention there's just New York comedy. It's just a whole other world that I don't pursue very often just because it's a heavily saturated market. It takes a lot longer to make any headway down there, and there's plenty of stuff in New England. It's
like I was saying before, though, about how open mic comedians can be a tough audience.
Yes.
But it's in Connecticut, it's if you think that in Connecticut, you're going to have an even tougher time in New York because they're an even tougher audience.
But then at this mic I was talking about, they were laughing at other people. So it's not like they're refusing to laugh at anything, because we have seen some of those mics. I've been at mics where...
But also you're an outsider to them.
Yeah.
Because they all know each other.
Right.
They don't know you.
Yeah, be it too. But I've also, you've also been at mics in New York where everybody spends their entire night looking at their phone or looking at their notebook until they're up there, then they talk, then they might just leave, or they go back and look.
Completely wrapped up in... definitely a more self-involved open mic scene. And I've noticed that too because it's the summer I spent in New York, it was like really only like the shows that I were on. It's weird. It's like the highs and lows. I feel like it's the highs and lows have the big difference because the open mics are, even though the open mics are so terrible, the shows that you're able to do are like, all right, this is why it's worth it to be in New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I've performed at some of the clubs, not in a long time, just on the shows. But like I said, there's so many people down there trying to get it. Not as many people know me. I'm not going to invest a lot of time trying to get in there because again, you'll deal with something like that, an off audience, people who don't know you, and there's so much better stuff going on up here in New England. That I do most of my stuff anyway. So.
You're not hungry enough for it.
I guess not. Maybe I'm on the wrong diet. There's so many diets now. I haven't tried keto.
Did you have any of that popcorn, by the way?
It's very light.
I got I got a few different like flavors you could put on it if you think it's a little dry because I didn't put any salt on it either.
Ooh,
so there's like bacon flavor and Parmesan cheese. So yeah, Dave's going for it, putting some bacon flavor on the pot. And you know what's funny? I saw those flavors. I thought that was like something just for you could get in like the grocery store, but apparently they have them at the movie theaters now too. Because I saw those flavors at MGM, and I'm like, yeah, I got like the
MGM Foxwoods.
Yeah, no MGM. The one in
Springfield.
Massachusetts. Yeah, Springfield.
Is there a trick to this?
You might need to bang it a couple times. Yeah. There we go.
Thank you.
Sorry, podcast listeners. I was just trying to loosen up some of that bacon flavor. Is it still not coming out?
Well, it was one big brick, and you just made it 3 sort of bricks.
Oh my God.
Well, it's also sitting right on top of the popcorn machine, and the heat is probably chemically altering it to the point where it's not a powder anymore.
Let's see. Yeah, just try to get some from the... It is totally a brick. I had no idea it could
sitting up there.
Solidify like that.
Have you used the others?
You might want to try one of the other flavors. I haven't had... The last time we had popcorn was the last time I had a podcast guest over, which was about 2 weeks ago.
I was going to say 2015.
Yeah, it's a.
No, these are all
solid. Holy shit!
Do you usually keep them up there?
Yeah. I don't know what happened. All right.
I like it unsalted. I'm good unsalted.
Okay, I guess these flavors aren't as. Something. Fuck these Colonel Seasons. That's the name of this. You know what?
I think they were in powder shape when you bought them.
All right, let's change gears for a minute here. So you were raised in West Haven, and then in Orange, then moved to West Haven as an adult. What did your parents do for a living?
My father worked for a government contractor and just worked on like planning various projects, and my mother worked at a hospital for about 20 years. Mostly like administrative, clerical, secretarial jobs, and then she was a clerk for the last couple of years before retiring. They were both at like the same employer for a long time, like since I was around 3. So they had kind of the same job until my mom retired. My father ended up getting sick as he was starting to think about retiring and ended up passing away, but he was there for about 30 years.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Dave. Your mom's still around, though?
Yeah, she is loving retirement, taking full advantage of it. She's going to Ireland next month.
Oh, nice.
She travels a lot. She has groups of friends she does all this stuff with, so she's very, very active.
That's great. You know what I've noticed with my grandmother? I actually spent some time with my grandmother down in South Carolina. She's they've got this group of all old lady friends, and they all of their husbands have passed away, and they all travel, and they all like travel the world and everything. And I realized like having a dinner and a discussion with these older women like that, like husbands do nothing but drag women down. And then when they die, they actually men live like for a shorter amount of time than women do, and then after that, women actually get to live their lives.
Well, the way I saw it with my parents, my father was a traditional homebody. I mean, he was a family man. He took care of his family, but he was not like very social. He had some friends he stayed in touch with from high school.
Right.
But my mom was a social one.
Do you have a sense of humor? Or
Yeah. But my mother learned early on what you just said. So she would occasionally drag him or try to get him to do, they'd go to the movies or they'd do some stuff, but a lot of times he just wasn't interested. So she figured that out and found her own group of friends and found, activities and stuff, things she could do, people to do stuff with. And when he ended up passing, as devastating as that was for all of us, she was in a lot better position than a number of people I know who have lost their significant others after that long, because she knew as soon as she dealt with all this, she had all these social circles and friends and things ready to go back to. My friend's mother died after a long sickness, and his dad was a very loving husband, but completely 100% his whole life was taking care of her, which is admirable. But once that person you're taking care of is gone, everything's gone. Like, it's not just a matter of learning to live without your spouse. It's like everything, your whole life went.
Right.
Not just your significant, of course, significant other is a huge part of your life, but it was your entire life. Now what? So it took a long time to just start to rebuild, because, once you get to like your 70s, adapting to change is not usually part of the culture. Yeah. So at that age, as difficult as this is to deal with, now it's just like, where do you even go? So my mom kind of did it right. She grieved. She did what she needed. Still misses him to the day.
Do you have siblings, Dave?
I have an older brother.
The one older brother. Mm-hmm. Is he like you, or?
In some ways.
Yeah. I always view you as like kind of like the analytical, kind of like thinks with logic type guy, almost like a Spock-like figure.
He is similar to me in that way. Yes. Yes.
And your dad was like that as well?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I got, I think I have some, traits from both parents. But him more the analytical. My mom was always more social. Social for me didn't come till later on. I was very awkward. Again, not surprising.
Just was, right?
I think I'm better now, if you can even...
Do you think stand-up comedy kind of like changed some of the social aspect of your life, or?
I think a little bit. It helped me see some things that I wish I'd seen sooner, but hindsight.
Like what?
Well, when I had like grade school era, I knew most of the kids. I was sort of social, so, I was close to them. I'd hang out at their houses like you do. Once I hit middle school and saw what raging pricks kids could be, I kind of just receded. I still had a few friends, but I became very antisocial.
Were you bullied at all back then?
Not like relentlessly. I had some random episodes, but I didn't have, like in the movies or sitcoms, that one guy who constantly terrorizes you every day.
Right.
Just some isolated incidents. But I also kind of withdrew and didn't want to be social because I figured everybody was out to get me. And so what I would start to do like when people would try to be social in a positive way, I would kind of act as a teenager how most people know me to act now, which is, I guess, a little unconventional, but once you know me, I'm generally easygoing. But at the time, people who didn't know me that well thought I was, like, really angry or psychotic, and I was just kidding around, but they didn't know it, and I didn't realize they didn't know it. So
what was, like, an example of this?
I don't know, just like how you haze each other or just talk down. Like they would do it, and I could see everybody's like busting each other's balls and their friends. So I would do the same thing or say the same thing, but
and they'd be like, "Whoa!"
But
like,
yeah, expressionlessly. I didn't know them as well, so I didn't quite get that you can't really zing people like that unless you know them.
Gotcha.
And I'm just trying to play along, and like what Then they're acting like, "Why are you doing this?" And I didn't get at the time that like you're not really in their circle. That's not really how you connect. And I'm just like, I'm trying to bond, and they're like shutting me out, so I don't know what to do. And I didn't realize till much later on, it's like, oh, they didn't realize I was trying to play along. I didn't give them any indication.
All right, so back to the question, stand-up comedy helped you see things that you didn't see before. What?
I feel like stand-up gave me an outlet to be kind of that person, and it was okay. One thing I've had some people say recently, like people, audience members I talked to afterwards, is all, some of my jokes are ridiculous and out there, and I've had several people recently come up and say, I don't know how the hell you say that stuff with a straight face.
But at the same time, it's that group of people you were looking for to, so you could bust each other's balls, and you didn't have that group back then. Stand-up comedians are all guys trying to bust each other's balls.
Yes.
And it's funny because it's like we don't even really need to know each other that well to automatically, if you're another comedian, it's almost like you have the right to bust the other guy's balls. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There's pretty much an understanding. If you're going to commit yourself to this, there's certain things about you that just we all have in common that people who don't do this maybe don't. It's a bonding thing. Just because this is allegedly one of the most terrifying things you can do in life.
But it's strange though, because I feel like we're all very sensitive on the inside, stand-up comedians. Yeah. But at the same time, on the inside. It's like almost like a hostess, like a gooey center, where it's like sensitive on the inside, and then we all have like these thick walls, like these exteriors. But like through busting each other's balls, we're all trying to like chip away at that shit. You know what I mean?
Stiff exteriors and gooey centers. So comedians are just a big Whitman sampler box, I think is what you're trying to say, Matt.
Exactly.
Am I coconut cream? Am I?
You want me to grab you one of those Guinnesses?
Yes.
All right. Sing the audience a song or something till I get back with that.
I can't actually think that's going to happen.
All right. Just sing something so there's not a lull.
This isn't live, is it? You're going to pause
it's not
this
live, but I didn't. It stopped on the recording.
I'm here against my will. Matt's acting all pleasant, but like my hands aren't
Dave,
free.
you're not.
It's coming back.
The Guinness aren't very cold yet, so you want to know.
I'm okay with that.
All right, I'll just bring it a little thin.
Oh, these might work well together. No, I'm not gonna do that.
Nah. You're gonna have the Guinness float on top of a seltzer. You're gonna be the first person to attempt that.
Oh, right.
Would you shake them up before you brought them
over?
You
just handed it to me. Oh wait, they were in my car. No, you know what? The first one I took out when I was cheating on you with them, it did the same thing. So I don't know if that's just normal. I haven't bought Guinness cans in a while.
It has the little like
the nitrogen thing.
Yeah, the little thing in it that you could shake it around in the can when you're done with it, right?
Yes.
I brought out a glass for Dave here, and it's one of my. I got that glass at the
storehouse.
I actually got that glass at the Hungry Tiger. I told Don, the guy that runs the place, I'm like, I love this glass. I want this for my house because clearly I have a turtle over here, and there's a turtle on the glass, and on the glass there's a little turtle with a Guinness on its shell.
Do you know the story about me being a turtle?
No, you're a turtle, Dave?
According to Matt Woodland.
Matt Woodland says that Dave's a turtle, and I want to hear why.
Well, we faced each other in a roast battle.
Okay.
And for this first round, the round in which he and I were facing off, the bulk of everything he said was how I am a turtle and why. And it wasn't inaccurate, but there were a lot of comics there that night, and it was just very well remembered. Colin James was inspired to get a turtle tattoo largely because of that exchange.
Really?
And says that eventually he's going to complement the tattoo with Matt's and my initials.
It's funny that you tell this story because does it have anything to do with you being like Sheldon and Sheldon is like a turtle name. It also happens to be the name of my turtle.
How old is the turtle?
I don't know. I found the turtle about a few months back in the spring there.
Okay. Did you name him after the TV character?
I did not. See, it's like I can't tell the gender of a turtle.
I don't know. Bring it to a vet.
Yeah. So it's either Sheldon or Shelley. I go back and forth all the time. but there's that. So like I was gonna be more creative with that, maybe name it after one of the Ninja Turtles or something. But like I don't know if it's a girl or not. So like Sheldon or Shelley.
Well, the Ninja Turtles could probably go Donatello versus Donatella.
I suppose.
Leonarda. Leona. I feel like you didn't put enough thought into that, but Sheldon's a decent name.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's related as far as the turtle goes.
But I think that the same week the last episode of The Big Bang Theory aired was the same week I found that term.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So
I guess in a way,
similar.
yes, I did name it after Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
All right.
Which, if none of you out there in podcast land know that Dave is often compared to Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
Now that the series is over, though, you think you're still going to hold on to that material? Or?
I considered that, and honestly, yes, because look how heavily that's in reruns.
That's
not going.
It's going to be in the canon of pop culture for a long time.
Like
it's going to be like the show
reruns.
Friends. You know what I mean?
Seinfeld and Friends. Friends has been off the air for 15 years. Seinfeld's been off more than 20. They're both still in huge rotation, and certainly with Friends, I'm not sure about Seinfeld. Finding new life in Netflix seasons for younger people who weren't around or old enough when it originally aired. And I would imagine a show that has had the presence as Big Bang will have new fans 10 years from now when people who are like infants or kids now will discover.
Well, that and I think young Sheldon is still going too. So
yes, it's a spinoff. I mean, it's very different, just other than the fact that the same actor narrates the past. But it's the same characters, younger, but it's an entirely different series.
Yeah.
So people might be watching it now, but I don't know that there might be some throwbacks in like adult Sheldon's commentary about the current.
Well, now that Big Bang's off the air, I feel like that a lot of those actors are going to get some kind of guest star roles on young Sheldon.
Yeah, that might.
I feel like that's going to start happening.
It could. It might not be like younger versions of themselves, just because.
Oh, of course not.
The
because
character was born, I think, in Texas, and they're all from. Well, they all live in California, but I think Leonard, was from New Jersey. I don't know where the others were from, but they weren't. It's not like they all grew up in the same area. They just ended up in California. So they might bring in actors to do like minor roles, just different roles, but just they hire them because they were on the original series. I don't know.
Who knows? What else do you want to talk about here? I don't know. Who were you really inspired by, do you think, growing up in terms of comedy?
I loved watching Seinfeld. Honestly, I think nothing against him, but I think I enjoyed Jerry Seinfeld's show more than his act. His act is good. He's got a lot of good stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing him live, but I'm not like dying to. Plus, whenever he's around at one of the casinos, it's $200.
Have you ever seen him live?
No.
I've seen him live once, and he's really just does all the same material he did in like those like 2-minute things or on the show.
Which is a little surprising because I remember in the early 2000s it was either an HBO special or a tour or both where he claimed he was doing all of his highlight bits from the last 10, 15 years and retiring them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him do like TV appearances here and there where he's doing newer stuff. So I don't know if he incorporates newer stuff with the classics or if he undid that. I don't know.
If that's true, then I don't know. The Netflix special that I saw where he's at the comic strip, is that the one you're talking about?
No, this was like a few years after his series ended, so like 2002, 2003. Right. It was at a theater, not a club.
No, I feel like he holds on to his bits for dear life.
And there's no reason not to.
But, I guess he's one of those comics that, like, he loves his own material just so much. Because do you watch Comedians in Cars at all?
I've seen some of them. I haven't seen, honestly, most of them.
Because I feel like he just brings up his old bits all the time to whenever something reminds him of one of his old bits, he just does it.
I've been doing stand-up so long that sometimes if I go a little off the cuff and if it's a small audience and I start talking to somebody, they might say something that reminds me of a bit I haven't done in a while.
Yeah.
So I can sort of do the bit but make it look off the cuff. So if you've been doing it long enough and have enough stuff on different topics, that'll happen sometimes.
That's a part of the reason I love how Kate Clancy and Brian Barganier brought the Riff Bowl into their open mics. because so many of those riffs will remind me of old
Yeah.
bits that I haven't done in forever, and then I'll get a chance to do those bits.
I
You know
like
what
the
I mean?
idea, but for some reason, stuff like that, I kind of choke. Like when I did it that night, I couldn't come think of anything. Because I find it a little odd compared to other people that, you'll ask like a general conversational question, like name your top 5 action movies. Some people just bam, 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 they can tell you the list, and I'm like, give me 20 minutes to think of them because I don't keep a list handy. Because one of the ones I do, or two of the ones I do, are like, what is the worst TV show? What is the best TV? I don't know. I can tell you ones I like. I can tell you ones I don't like. I don't know that I have a specific favorite, but I feel like most people do. So I was the wrong person to draw those. I should have put them back. Right. I do like the idea.
But when I asked you who you were inspired by or who'd you look up to back, you immediately said Seinfeld. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. Again, it's not going to be every question like that, but a lot of the name your top or something questions I feel like most people will have they don't need to think about an answer. I have to think about it to the point where the person no longer cares.
Who do you think's more talented between the two, Larry David or Jerry Seinfeld?
That's a tough
because
comparison.
After Curb came out, and I've watched every episode of Curb now. I feel like Larry David's really the true genius.
Probably because I've heard that in the Seinfeld era when he would do stand up, it didn't always go that well. Like he wasn't as good a stand-up comedian as Jerry was, but he was obviously a good writer because he co-created Seinfeld.
Right.
And it was a joint project for the two of them, and people I don't think were as familiar with Larry, of course, before Curb because he was just a credit name. He had a couple of like off-screen roles. I think he was the voice of Steinbrenner. But he was never like in the series. He was just an active force behind it for several years. But yeah, once I started watching Curb, first of all, it became extremely clear to me how well Jason Alexander as George Costanza was embodying him because I could see such a resemblance to George's character with Larry being an exaggerated version of himself. But since their talents were both, Jerry, they were both writers, but Larry plays his role very well.
I feel like Jerry was the straight man, but also the performer, while Larry David was kind of like almost like a mad scientist.
Yeah, that's exactly what the character of George was, and that you could see their relationship in that Jerry and George pairing on Seinfeld for all those years, and you could see how Jerry was always mostly the mellow, level-headed, and George was kind of off in space, overreacting or getting into all these ridiculous situations.
Do you think you could write a sitcom if you wanted to? Do you think you could
I would give it a try because sitcoms have always been. I grew up watching sitcoms.
Why not give it a shot? Why not write like a spec strip, a pilot?
I wrote a number of years ago when I was in an improv group, I wrote a short, like a 5 to 6 minute sketch that got filmed. I think I still have it somewhere, the recording. And I wrote another one that would have been a little longer. Is it digital?
Can you send this to me?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Okay. I'll make a note because I'll forget. I wrote another one that I wanted to record, and I had some people who were interested, but it just never happened. I sent it to a few people, but I don't have all the equipment, and it's just tough getting this other one I wrote has 4 characters, so then you have to get 4 people together on the same day with several hours, find a location, all this stuff, and I'm just so swamped with everything I'm doing right now.
So what was that about?
It was absurdist, because that's the kind of stuff I like. The one I'm going to send you, or the one I wrote?
Either one. Oh, the one that you filmed, actually.
It was a sort of a superhero spoof about a less than competent superhero being called to action and bumbling his way there. And by the time he got to the crisis scene, the crisis was long over.
Right.
So I'll send it to you.
He drives like an old Toyota Corolla to the crime scene.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
the other one was just absurdist. It was a couple coming home to what looked like a crisis, and they were trying to call the authorities, and that wasn't they were getting weird things on the phone. Then it turned out not to be a crisis, and again, just no real logic. Just I like the whole. This doesn't really make sense, and that's the point. So it probably would have been like 8 to 10 minutes filmed out. And I wrote I don't think a lot of people know this. I wrote a play once that was terrible, and I lost it.
Lost it?
It was also absurdist. It was largely inspired by the nothingness of Seinfeld. It was just like characters sitting around like bickering.
You know, I always felt like Seinfeld was inspired a bit by the play The Importance of Being Earnest.
I know that
by
title.
Oscar Wilde.
I know the title. I never read
and
it.
I feel like it was like that was the original play about nothing. You know what I mean? I feel like it was just like a it was because it's such an old play too. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was like 1900 era.
Yeah, it was like for like an 18th century Seinfeld, where it's like two guys just like bullshitting.
Well, I never had to read that in high school, but I had to read Waiting for Godot, which was similar.
Yes.
It was two guys on the side of the road. It's never really clear to, I think, them or the listeners or the viewers what exactly they're doing, but there's just nonsense keeps happening, and they keep talking about, what are we doing here?
Oh, I'd love a piece of beef jerky. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, I mean, the idea isn't new, but just like Jerry was the one who introduced it to modern culture. And the odd thing is, that was not his goal. The original idea that he had was he wanted to do what was originally a one-time special that was supposed to showcase how a working comedian goes about his day and how the situations and thoughts turn into bits. And that aired in 1989, is now considered the pilot of Seinfeld. A couple of people at NBC liked it and said, can you do a few more? So they did, like, I think 4 more, again, just like in the summer, this is back when summer was all reruns on TV. They made a few new ones. They kept just cranking out, like, short seasons, and it didn't really take off till, like, the 3rd or 4th season, but initially it was focused on how comedians do their craft. And over time, because you saw how the little elements of a social situation, the awkward things that people could relate to and were seeing, that led to, this stuff leads to comedy bits. But it's also funny for people to watch, and the whole comedy, how this becomes stand-up almost became secondary. It's like, it's funny to just see awkward situations people get into. That became the crux of the show, to the point where by the middle of the series, the whole bit about how let's workshop this and turn it into, that was like gone. You only see that in the early seasons.
Now, I could talk about the origins of Seinfeld all day, but what I'm really interested in right now is how you wrote a play and lost it. What was this play about?
Again, it was pretty much kind of about nothing. It was just a family, like an older couple who had been married a long time and were just home. It was pretty much took place entirely in like real time. There were no scenes. It was just continuous. They were just bickering, arguing. I think their kid, who's like an adult kid, came over with his wife, and they factored in a little bit. This was back in the late 90s when everything was stored on 3.5 inch hard floppy disks, and that's where I had it backed up. And I don't know what happened to it. One day I was like thinking,
God!
I don't
know. So you had this stored on this is on a floppy disk somewhere.
Well, it's gone now.
Well, it's probably in a landfill somewhere at this point. But it was on a floppy disk and now lost.
I think I had multiple.
It was
backups.
Never printed out though.
Probably, but I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I actually went to the.
This sounds like something I want to help you make though. I want to be the younger. I want to be the son in this play here.
You could be the son in the mini script that I still have and have never filmed. There is a college-age kid in that, which I think you're a little older than that, but you passed for it.
Okay.
If that ever gets filmed. But again, there's a lot has to come together to that, and I tried 10 years ago. But again, it's on the way in the back burner. I can send you the script if you'd like to read it.
Send me the script, Dave, because I want to check this out. I want to... This is the whole point of the 1000 Comics podcast, so we could share ideas and develop things that never, I feel like it's one of those things, right back to what I was saying before about how we have these thick walls of chocolate surrounding our gooey insides, our sensitive gooey insides that we never really share with other people because it's like we see each other at shows and open mics all the time. We never really talk about like the real stuff that we wanted to work on, like our real dreams in comedy. You know what I mean?
I do, but again, I think I'm not necessarily, nor do I think anyone else is avoiding these topics.
Right.
But if we're sitting at a bar at a mic waiting for a show to start,
we're talking about what's at hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd have no reason to bring up some of the things I talked about.
You're tonight. You would be like a weirdo if you were like, hey, I wrote this script. You're like, yeah, good for you, buddy. Like I completely understand, but at the same time, like I feel like that's the whole reason I even created this podcast, and I wanted to get to know comedians a little bit better, and
because we get to work with a lot of excellent people doing this, and like you just said, we're not always going to know, and that's kind of life. I'm finding, the older I get, the more people I have met and who've been a part of my life, some of them I wish I could see more, but there's just so little time. I have so much stuff I wish I could do that there just isn't time for. You have to pick and choose, and you don't always have to deliberately cut people out, but there is only so many hours in the day, and you have to take care of yourself. You need your own time to get things done, pay the bills. Life gets in the way. So we're always going to look back and think, oh, I wish I could have done that. And you got to do as much as you can.
At the same time, I feel like there's so many of us that are stand-ups that it's like all we ever get to do is stand up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, why does Jerry Seinfeld get to be the only guy that takes the ball and rolls with it and gets to like make this? But it's like I know he's not the only guy.
No, but he's an exception because he was doing exactly what we were doing. He was doing it like 30, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. He was known enough in New York that someone at NBC asked him to create this pilot. He didn't think it was going to become a series, and he certainly didn't think it was going to become one of the most popular TV shows of all time. That wasn't what he set out to do. It just became that. So
it's amazing how these things just happen by accident,
Yeah, you don't know how many TV shows are pitched, especially now with streaming services and cable. There's hundreds of TV shows. They're not all going to hit. Some are going to flop immediately. Some are going to fizzle along and burn out. Only a few really stand out of the thousands that have been pitched over the years.
Yeah. and
we gotta try.
Now they just stick to reality TV shows for the most part, just because you should have seen the face Dave just made. Because let's say they're just cheaper to make. They don't have to pay actors. They don't have to pay writers.
Yeah.
And so is scripted comedy just dying, or what do you think?
It's definitely more expensive because of paying actors and all that. I don't know that it's dying. It might be taking a backseat to other formats. Like I said, reality is so easy to. There's so much less of a fewer production costs and all that. But like with all these other formats, like streaming and things, you can have a lesser budget show that might be pretty good, like on Amazon Prime or something like that. Mm-hmm. But you can have unknown actors who might still be good and might make a good show. But you don't have to worry about like paying A-list celebrities if you're going to get like a new sitcom on ABC or something. You got to have a big draw for that. So it gives more people more opportunities, I guess.
All right, I think we're actually winding down at this point. Is there anything you want to promote, Dave, that you got coming up?
Apparently, I'm going to be in Killingworth on the 15th.
Is that the 15th? Are you sure that's the 15th? Because I don't want to.
Well, it's the third.
It's the third Sunday of September. Because I'm gonna check on this real quick.
The 15th is the third Sunday in September. Also, the week after that is.
You know that off the top of you know the day.
Yes.
I think we've had this discussion before that
had it with several people.
That you know what day the day of the week lands on. That's a crazy ability to have. The third Sunday, so first, 8th. No, you're wrong. Because today is Sunday, correct? Mm-hmm. And it's the first.
Yep.
So the third Sunday is the 15th.
That's what I just said.
Okay, you're right,
Matt. What's going on over there?
Because I needed one of those "what the fuck are you talking about" moments so I could bring this whole thing full circle.
Nicely done.
So come see me and Dave. We're both featuring at June's Outback in Killingsworth, Connecticut, 8 p.m. And we'll both be featuring, and hopefully, I don't know, Kate Clancy, Brian Barganier will be putting that on, so check it out. Anything else, Dave? You want to throw out your Twitter handle, any of that stuff?
I can, but I don't use Twitter, even though I do have an account I update.
Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram is Shroud of Silence. Facebook is me. I mean, just look for my name.
Look for his name.
Us, but the one with the guy holding a mic is probably the one you want. Maybe not.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show,
me,
man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.